Alright, so here's part 2 of the bottlegate incident. As I left off on the last video, basically Terry McAulay ended the game after 5 minutes of the fans throwing beer bottles onto the field, and yeah, it was the ugliest night in the entire history of the National Football League, because obviously it was a situation that was so bizarre, so unthinkable. Not a lot of fans thought that. Not a lot of NFL fans thought that such a situation could have happened, but it happened nonetheless. Now, here's my thoughts. Was it the right thing to do to go back and review another previous play because of that technical malfunctions? By the rule, by the virtue of the game, by definition, by the spirit of the NFL, I do not believe it was right for the referees to go back and review another play. If I were the referee and this situation come up, I would have gotten on the PA and I would have said a replay was buzzed prior to the snap. However, because another play was already run before we could stop the game, by rule, we cannot review the previous play. Therefore, second down, Cleveland ball. Yeah, that's what I would have said, because obviously that was not a legal review by the rules. It's like a lot of there's mixed reactions between people saying, oh, that was a legal review, or that was totally not a legal review. It's like, personally, I believe that according to the rules and according to the spirit of the game, that was not a legal review. Because you cannot go back and review another play under any circumstances. A technical malfunction is a circumstance, and the rule specifically prohibits circumstances. And personally, I think Terry McAulay was wrong to review this play. And I think every time Terry McAulay says that it was a legal review, he loses credibility. Clearly the rules don't allow it. If the rules did mention technical malfunctions, allowing a referee to go back and review another play, then yeah, it would have been a legal review. But since nowhere in the rule book says that it mentions anything about technical malfunctions, it absolutely was not a legal review. Now, as for whether the catch was caught or not, that's up for debate. Some fans say yes, some fans say no, but I've seen similar plays where the referees still call it a catch. And personally, I think it was a catch. I would have ruled it a catch because the replays looked inconclusive to me. And the way that Terry McAulay ruled it, after reviewing, all he said was, after review, the pass is incomplete, first down Jacksonville. That is not sufficient explanation, okay? If you're going to review, if you're going to overturn a call, you have to provide sufficient explanation. Now, if he said, after review, the receiver did not have control of the ball and the tip of the ball touched the ground, therefore the pass is incomplete, that would have been sufficient explanation, and it would not have set off so many fans. But nevertheless, I do believe that this was indeed the most controversial call in the history of the National Football League, because it was a clear violation of the spirit and the rules of the National Football League. It's like, but nonetheless, even though the Browns got eliminated from playoff contention because of this horrible handling of a situation, the very next season they got their revenge. They were up against Jacksonville next season. They scored a touchdown to win the game. They reviewed it, and they knew that it was a touchdown, and they had to have the ruling stand. Because I know that when they were reviewing it, they were saying, look, if we don't uphold this call, the entire city of Cleveland is not going to let any NFL officials come into Cleveland alive. So basically, they ruled it a touchdown. Cleveland barely got into the playoffs because of that victory. They ended up losing to Pittsburgh in the wild card round, but the Cleveland Browns got their revenge the very next season. And then there was some aftermath about this controversial call on Terry McAulay. First of which, because of the horrible handling situation of Terry McAulay during the bottlegate incident, he was disqualified from any possibility of officiating a postseason game that year. The second backlash that Terry McAulay suffered is that he received a lifetime ban from ever officiating another game involving the Cleveland Browns. So now, whenever there's a bye week and the Cleveland Browns are playing, whenever certain teams have bye weeks, there's a chance that Terry McAulay might not officiate that week, meaning he'll lose more money. So was it financially smart for Terry McAulay to handle this situation that way? Ultimately, no. It's like, was it the right call to make had the replay review been legal? It might have. That's still up for debate. But was the replay review legal? By rule, it was not. And that is why it is the most controversial call in my opinion. And I know that when Terry McAulay and the commissioner at the time, Paul Tabagu, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I know when they met, I know that Paul Tabagu said, if you ever handle a situation that poorly again, I'm not only going to fire you, I'm going to make sure you never officiate another football game at any level. And ever since that meeting, Terry McAulay never let a situation get out of hand like that again. So I believe Terry McAulay learned his lesson, and after the bottlegate incident, that never to let a situation like that get out of hand again. So that basically concludes my top 10 list on the most controversial calls of all time. Bottlegate to me will always be number one. I mean, yeah, it cost the Browns got screwed in the 2001 season on Week 14, but they got their revenge the very next season. So basically, the Browns were redeemed. So basically, my top 10 list on the most controversial calls is over. You know, if you want to, I mean, for you viewers who might disagree with me on my choice of top 10 most controversial calls of all time, feel free to make your own top 10 list on the most controversial call and share it with me. I'd be interested in listening to it or reading it or whatever. But anyways, the next time I do a top 10 list involving the National Football League, I'm most likely going to be doing a top 10 list on the best Super Bowls of all time. I mean, there have been 44 Super Bowls as of late, but I believe that it's about the right time to do a top 10 list on the top 10 Super Bowls of all time. So, thank you very much for watching this top 10 list on the most controversial calls of all time. I'm Kyle Snyder, aka Clipton, and I'll see you next time for another top 10 list.